Vince McMahon revolutionized the professional wrestling industry by challenging the established regional territories and expanding the WWE on a national scale. After breaking away from the National Wrestling Alliance, he recruited top talent like Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Ric Flair, and incorporated pop culture elements to attract a broader audience. McMahon's creation of WrestleMania and other pay-per-view events with the likes of Survivor Series, King of the Ring, SummerSlam, and the Royal Rumble marked a significant shift in the industry, leading to the 1980s professional wrestling boom. His innovative approach transformed the WWE into a unique sports entertainment brand that appealed to both families and casual fans. Would you like to know the chronicle of this pro wrestling visionary? Stay tuned and do not forget to subscribe to Sports Hooked.
Excuse me while I whip this out. No chance in hell!
Part to open the creative envelope, so to speak.
Yeah, fire!
McMahon's early stage of life was marked by instability and hardship. Born to Victoria and Vincent James McMahon in Pinehurst, North Carolina, he was separated from his father at a young age when his older brother Roderick was taken away. Raised by his mother and various stepfathers, McMahon experienced a troubled childhood, including physical abuse from one stepfather. Despite these challenges, he graduated from Fishburne Military School in Virginia, where he faced hardships due to dyslexia. McMahon's early career in professional wrestling began when he was 12 years old and met his father, Vincent James McMahon, the promoter for Capital Wrestling Corporation. Despite his desire to become a wrestler, his father advised him against it. After graduating from East Carolina University with a business degree, McMahon joined his father's Worldwide Wrestling Federation promotion in 1969. He quickly rose through the ranks, becoming a ring announcer, territory promoter, and television commentator. In the 1970s, McMahon played a key role in expanding his father's company's television syndication and organizing high-profile matches like Muhammad Ali versus Antonio Inoki. In 1980, he founded Titan Sports and became its chairman, acquiring control of Capital Wrestling Corporation in 1982. In the mid-1990s, Vince McMahon faced challenges as the WWF struggled against competition from WCW, as the major names such as Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Bret Hart, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall had left WWE for WCW. To revitalize the company, he introduced a new era known as WWF Attitude. This era featured more adult-oriented storylines, controversial content, and a focus on larger-than-life characters like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. McMahon's involvement in storylines as the villainous Mr. McMahon further captivated audiences. The key moments and storylines involving McMahon during this era include feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin, which was one of the most iconic feuds in wrestling history, with McMahon often using his power and influence to torment Austin by upsetting the latter one to win the 1999 Royal Rumble. McMahon's on-screen persona is known for his throaty exclamation of "You're fired," and his power walk, an exaggerated strut toward the ring, swinging his arms and bobbing his head from side to side in a cocky manner. According to Jim Cornette, the power walk was inspired by one of McMahon's favorite wrestlers as a child, Dr. Jerry Graham. Then there is Montreal Screwjob, where McMahon orchestrated this controversial event, which involved a rigged match to ensure that Bret Hart lost the WWF Championship against Shawn Michaels at 1997 edition of Survivor Series, which resulted in huge altercation between Mr. McMahon and Bret Hart as the latter would leave WWF for rival company WCW in frustration. Then he was also responsible for proposing the Invasion storyline, which was considered a major event in professional wrestling history that took place in late 2001. It involved a feud between the World Wrestling Federation and the Alliance, a stable formed by wrestlers from WCW and ECW. The storyline began after the WWF, under complete control of Mr. McMahon, acquired WCW in March 2001. Shane McMahon, the son of Mr. McMahon, announced that he had bought WCW from under his father's nose. This led to a series of run-in appearances by WCW and ECW wrestlers such as Booker T, DDP, Test, RVD, Rhino on WWF shows. In June 2001, WCW and ECW merged to form the Alliance, under the leadership of Shane McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, and Paul Heyman, and they challenged the WWF's control over the wrestling industry. The Invasion storyline featured many interpromotional matches between the Alliance and the WWF. The climax of the storyline occurred at Survivor Series, where Team WWF defeated Team Alliance in a winner-takes-all elimination tag team match. His executive role was not publicized to maintain the illusion of wrestling's staged storylines, or kayfabe. While McMahon did publicly identify himself as the owner of the WWF outside of WWF programming, on television his ownership of the WWF was considered an open secret through the mid-1990s. Jack Tunney, Gorilla Monsoon, his wife Linda McMahon, was portrayed as the president of WWF instead of Mr. McMahon from 1982 to 2005, while Vince himself assumed the role of president along with the head of the creative team later on. In 2002, WWE underwent a significant transformation, beginning with a name change from World Wrestling Federation to World Wrestling Entertainment due to a legal dispute with World Wildlife Fund. This shift marked a transition from the more provocative Attitude Era to the Ruthless Aggression Era, which was a period in WWE that followed the Attitude Era and was characterized by a more intense and aggressive style of wrestling, as well as a focus on younger talent, following departure of major stars from Attitude Era such as Steve Austin and The Rock. During this significant era, Vince began to push younger wrestlers, such as John Cena, Chris Benoit, Batista, Eddie Guerrero, Brock Lesnar, and Randy Orton to the forefront and torchbearers of the company, where the matches became more physical and brutal, with a greater emphasis on high-risk moves, and hardcore wrestling and storylines were often more complex and dramatic, with a focus on personal rivalries and character development. The move to a TV PG rating in 2008 marked a significant shift for WWE. This decision by Mr. McMahon aimed to attract younger audiences and secure lucrative corporate partnerships, where the programming adopted a more family-friendly approach. Profanity was toned down, suggestive content involving female wrestlers was reduced, and excessively violent acts like chair shots to the head were banned. These changes, however, coincided with a decline in viewership despite a rise in revenue. While there were talks of moving away from PG content in the mid-2010s, WWE has maintained the rating while aiming for a product accessible to all ages rather than strictly kid-friendly. Under Mr. McMahon persona, he was involved in a feud with 47th President of the United States, Donald Trump, in a Battle of the Billionaires hair versus hair match with legendary Stone Cold Steve Austin as special guest referee. He was also pivotal in bringing Reality Era, which was characterized by a shift towards a more reality-based approach to storytelling. This era, which spanned from roughly early 2014, saw a departure from the traditional, over-the-top storylines with the likes of Daniel Bryan's Yes Movement and end of Undertaker's impressive streak that had dominated the company for decades. He began to focus on developing athletes into real-life personalities, rather than simply portraying fictional characters. This led to the emergence of stars like CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles, Wyatt Family, and The Shield, who were known for their genuine charisma and connection with the audience. Despite his busy schedule as WWE's executive producer, Vince continued to be in worthy storylines even during this modern era as villainous Mr. McMahon character, such as the feud with Roman Reigns, who would torment the latter by forcing him to defend the WWE title in a 30-man Royal Rumble match famously dubbed as One vs. All. After leading WWE for decades, he transitioned into the role of executive chairman following a merger with UFC to form TKO on mid-2023. However, allegations of sexual assault from his ex-employee Janelle Grant and subsequent investigations led to his departure from creative power within WWE and ultimately his resignation from TKO. McMahon's departure from the company marked the end of an era and left Triple H in charge of WWE's creative direction. Despite the controversy surrounding his exit, Mr. McMahon remains a significant shareholder in TKO Group. In November 1993, Vince McMahon was indicted on federal charges related to a steroid controversy surrounding his company, the WWF. His wife, Linda, assumed temporary control of the company while McMahon faced trial in 1994. During the trial, McMahon was accused of distributing steroids to his wrestlers. Ultimately, in July 1994, the jury found McMahon not guilty of the charges, despite the death of former wrestlers such as Rick Rude, Eddie Guerrero, British Bulldog due to steroid abuse, while working under Vince McMahon, thereby bringing the context of supply of juice on the other hand. On June 25, 2007, another incident horrified the WWE universe revolving around another veteran talent. After conducting investigations, authorities determined that Chris Benoit had killed his wife and his 7-year-old son before taking his own life. Toxicology reports revealed that Benoit had been using a variety of performance-enhancing drugs, but experts concluded these did not contribute to his violent actions. Subsequent tests revealed severe brain damage consistent with chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a condition linked to repeated concussions. In response to the tragedy, WWE removed nearly all references to Chris Benoit from their content and public platforms, creating major controversy due to the fact that Benoit was renowned by many for his exceptional technical wrestling ability and was most used wrestler during post-Attitude and Ruthless Aggression era, such as his historic triumph during 2004 Royal Rumble and main event of WrestleMania 20, and completely removing the image likenesses of the one who dedicated his life in professional wrestling, who had no history of criminal records before, would literally make no sense. On January 25, 2024, Janelle Grant, a former WWE employee, filed a lawsuit against the company, Vince McMahon, and John Laurinaitis. Grant detailed several incidents, including a sexual abuse from McMahon and Laurinaitis where she was covered in feces, forced physical encounters, and McMahon's attempts to entice major WWE star with explicit media. That major star alleged turned to be Brock Lesnar. In May 2024, Grant agreed to pause her case at the request of the Department of Justice, which was launching its own investigation into the allegations against McMahon. These allegations are clearly mentioned in the documentary television miniseries, Mr. McMahon, streaming on Netflix. Vince McMahon has a substantial wealth portfolio, including properties in Manhattan, Greenwich, and a vacation home. He also owns a luxury yacht named Sexy. McMahon's net worth has fluctuated over the years, reaching a peak of $3.6 billion in 2018. Aside from his primary asset, World Wrestling Entertainment, better known as WWE, Vince McMahon has invested in several other ventures. These include XFL, a professional football league, in 2000. Although the original version of the league was short-lived, McMahon revived it in 2020. Then followed by Titan Towers, which is the iconic headquarters of WWE, which was opened on May 13, 1991 in Stamford, Connecticut. That's it guys, if you liked the video, then please do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel and tag your favorite WWE personnel of any era.